If anxiety is not a disorder, then what is it? The answer to that is going to change everything about the way that you recover. If you don't know me, my name is Deanta. I'm a clinical psychologist and an anxiety coach and the author of The Gift of Anxiety. And over the past decade, I've worked with hundreds of anxiety sufferers, and I'm here to tell you that probably the thing that you've been told about anxiety is the very thing that's making it worse. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to share what you've probably been told about anxiety, how that's affecting your recovery, and what anxiety really is. Because when you understand that, your recovery and your healing really becomes possible. So let's start with what you've probably already been told. The medical world is going to see anxiety as a chemical imbalance, and most people are going to have their first encounter with their GP. You'll have some symptoms, you'll not feel well, you'll go and speak to a doctor, and they'll probably do some tests, and then they will diagnose you with anxiety. And they'll send you home with a pack of prescription pills that you may or may not try. Now, most of them are going to assume that there's a chemical imbalance in your brain, and that's what's causing your anxiety. Maybe you even walk out with a diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder, health anxiety disorder, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder. The DSM has a name for pretty much everything. So if you've been handed a disorder, then that must mean that you're mentally ill. And now, suddenly, you're not just a person experiencing something, you're an anxiety sufferer that now has to cope or manage with a condition. But here's where most people get it wrong. You see, that model is doing something devastating to people. The moment that you're told that you have an anxiety disorder, you stop thinking you can recover and you start looking for ways to cope. You literally hand your authority over to that diagnosis and you lose your power. Most people are going to stop asking, what is this anxiety about? What is it trying to tell me? And they're going to start looking at ways to get rid of it because they see it as a threat and something like a disease. You start thinking that you're broken or defective, that there's something wrong with you, that you have a mental illness, unless, of course, you're a psychopath, but that's not you. So emotional responses are exactly as the name suggests. They are responses to something. Your anxiety is responding to something. It's asking you to pay attention to something important. We all have elements of anxiety. In fact, it's necessary for survival. It's the very thing that gets you up in the morning and to work on time, because you're just a little bit anxious about putting food on the table. It's also the very thing that helps a mother get up to her newborn baby in the middle of the night. She's just a little bit anxious about those cries. We need anxiety. It creates sympathetic activation and it tells us to pay attention to important aspects of our lives. So think about it like a smoke alarm. If you have a smoke alarm that's ringing an alarm, if you just switch that off without actually having a look at why that alarm is ringing, then the next time it's just going to carry on ringing. We have to go and investigate what's causing the trouble. But most of us are looking at that alarm and thinking, oh, it's broken. We'd remove the batteries, we remove the wiring, and we want to make it be quiet. That's what you're doing with your anxiety. In many cases, that fear of the anxiety is actually generating more of it. We get ourselves stuck into a fear of fear loop, and that's what turns our ordinary anxiety into stuck anxiety. Now, many people might call that an anxiety disorder. For the reasons I've just mentioned, I don't like to think of it as a disorder. It's simply stuck anxiety. If you want to know more about that fear of fear loop, I have another video, the number one reason your anxiety stays stuck, that you can have a watch to have a look at how that fear of fear loop is actually generating your anxiety. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, let me tell you a personal story. My husband was struggling with health anxiety for 18 months. Now, you might think as a psychologist, I have all the strategies, the books, the techniques to help somebody with anxiety. I threw it all at him. We tried the CBT, thought challenging techniques, the breathing, the relaxation strategies, the meditation, the exercise, the medication, you name it, and nothing helped him budge. He stayed anxious, feeling like he was dying of some rare lung disease, because that's what health anxiety does for you. And we kept generating more fear of fear. He was really afraid that his anxiety was never going to go away and that I was eventually going to leave him. I was terrified that he would never get better, and we would continue to just build anxiety into the space. He went for all the tests, the MRIs, the x-rays, the doctors, everything, you name it, always coming back clear, saying, you have anxiety. And the more he was told this, the more anxious and desperate we became to try to get rid of that. We really saw anxiety as a threat to our existence, our marriage, our lives, and we were literally throwing every strategy under the sun to try to get rid of it. The shift happened when we stopped seeing anxiety as a disease and started to see it as a signal. My husband came to realize that his anxiety was sparked off at a work event where he started to feel not good enough. Now, everybody resonates with this. We all have elements of feeling not good enough, of feeling like an imposter, feeling like a failure, or feeling like we don't fit in. And when we have life events, which we all will have, that trigger into those core beliefs, we feel vulnerable and our anxiety comes up. At that moment, he misinterpreted the cues. He didn't understand what was happening and he thought there was something wrong with his lungs, which then sent him into a trajectory of health anxiety. But only when we stepped back and went, hey, what actually happened? What actually caused that anxiety to come up in the first place? Was he able to take a step back and start addressing some of the things in his life and the stories of his life that were no longer serving him? And of course, since then, he's completely healed. He's no longer anxious about his health. We've immigrated. We've had another child. He started up a business. And we are doing really well. Now, I'm not telling you the story because he's special. He's just an ordinary guy, much like you. And this doesn't have to do with personality type or willpower or even the coping mechanisms that you're using. What this has to do with is how we are responding to our anxiety. And the way that we respond to it is dependent on what we believe about it. So healing becomes possible when you change how you see your anxiety. And this is where it gets really interesting, because what does this mean for you? Well, it means that anxiety is not a disorder. It's not something that you have to manage or cope with, and it definitely doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you or that you're broken. You don't need to build your world around avoiding it and making your life smaller so that you can stay away from it. You don't have to reach for 1 million coping mechanisms to make that anxiety go away. Because here's the hope. If it's just a signal, then it can be understood. And if it can be understood, then it can be resolved. Now, that's not a promise. That's just easy or quick fix. Real change takes time. It took my husband some time to heal those core wounds that were causing the belief that caused the anxiety in the first place. And every client that I've worked with since then, the hundreds that I've helped, have all found the same thing. When they put the effort into listening what anxiety is actually trying to tell them, they begin to see areas of their lives that really need attention. And that's why I wrote the book, The Gift of Anxiety, because when you put this work in and you start to listen to this very important emotional response, you will uncover areas of your life that need attention. So the practical shift starts with just one question. Instead of asking yourself, how am I going to cope with this anxiety? Ask yourself, what is this anxiety trying to tell me? Start there. So here's what I want to hear from you, and drop it in the comments. What have you been told about your anxiety? Have you been told that you have an anxiety disorder or a chemical imbalance? I'm willing to bet that somewhere along the line, you've been led to believe that this is a disease and that you have got something wrong with you. Be sure to drop it in the comments. I read every single one of them, and I'd love to hear your story. And if this resonated with you, hit subscribe. I drop a video like this one every single week so that you can change what you understand about anxiety and begin to truly heal. See you next time.